Welcome to another episode of the Sipping and Tripping podcast, where we connect with amazing people. Today, we will discuss the contents of my guest's latest book that she just got published. It's her second book, I believe. I am your host, Desmond Black, and the person that's sipping and tripping with me today has been an entrepreneur for the last 16 years. She's owned four different small businesses in four different industries. She's now a book coach and a ghostwriter, helping other authors bring their stories to life. She facilitates silent retreats and a silent meditation. She is none other than Miss Ellie Laliberte.
Yeah, that's
I know
good.
I know I probably botched that a little bit, but but it's a work in progress. So how you doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And it was crazy because when I see you, you posted on Facebook, and you was like, hey, if I could be a guest on somebody's show, I'll give a free copy of my book. So right away, I was like, you know what, this is going to work. And I got your book, and I read, I would say 80% of it, and
Nice.
it's very good. Now it's crazy because in one of your opening lines, you said reading a book, make sure you take time to reflect and then let your mind absorb the message, right? And at first, I was just reading it. Then I learned quickly. I was like, you know what? Let me slow down. Let me reread it a couple of times. And that happened throughout the course of the book. Like I had to stop and reread it a little bit just so I can grasp the understanding. And
Yeah.
it's very good. The book is very good, and I will finish the rest of it today. Now I got so many questions, but we'll get into that. But I will say in the beginning, I I felt like you knew me for a lifetime because a lot of the messages I was like, you know what, this pertains to my life, or this is how I felt yesterday, or this is how I felt 10 years ago. And I was able to relate to the message and the story. So that was important. And it was very meaningful. So, like I said, the first day I was just on go mode. I just kept reading. So that's good. And I was also, even though it's not related to poetry, but I was also writing a poem or trying to write a poem. And it was like a whole week, and I had like writer's block. And I never read a book with your style of writing, the way you wrote it. And it was very different. To me, it was like poetic.
Mm.
So after I was reading it, I was like, you know what? Let me come back to this. And I went back and tried to work on my poem, and I was able to finish it.
Wow,
So
that's
you was definitely an inspiration for behind that. I had let two people hear the poem so far, and they say it was excellent. So I still want a couple other people to hear it, but I wrote that one, and immediately I started writing another one. So,
mm,
like I said, I accredit that to you and your book.
awesome.
So I just wanted to
That's
get that out
awesome
there.
to hear. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Now, Ellie, on my platform, I like to conversate, educate, and entertain. And like I said, I have no worries today because your book is very entertaining, it's thought provoking, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people that's watching this either live or on the replay, I know they'll get a lot out of it. Now, let me ask you this: where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and
Okay.
I grew up about an hour away from there in a small town called Hawkesbury, Ontario, which is
Oh,
very bilingual. So you hear the accent, the French accent. My first language
very,
is
very little.
yeah,
Yeah, very
still
little. um, I assume you was removed from over there for a long period of time, because like I said, the
there.
accent is very small.
Yeah, no, I'm still very much. I'm actually back in my hometown, and it's pretty French. So I actually feel like I've been losing a little bit of my English because I'm too immersed in like the French community here. So, but I do speak English like every single day with my work and everything. So that's why it stays. But yeah, yeah, that's where I'm from.
Okay, okay. Now, do you have any siblings?
Yes, I do. I have a older sister and an older brother.
And y'all close to each other?
We're not that close. We were closer a little bit when we were younger, and like everybody has family and things like that. So it's like, and we're not in the same industry, in the same world. Also, I would say.
Yeah. As I get older, that's something that I'm coming to terms with. Like I'm starting to realize that, like, it's a lot of people that I feel like the connection is there, and they're good people, or they was good friends, but it's like it's different career paths, So some people that I'm close with, they doing their thing, I'm doing their thing, and we're just not in line with each other. So
Yeah.
but the most important thing is when we do see each other or we do speak with each other, we make it meaningful. So
Yeah.
that's important. But
Exactly.
sometimes you sit there and you be bored and you be like, dang. And you try to call this person, they don't answer. Call somebody else, they don't answer. Call somebody else, they don't answer. And then you just throw your hands in the air and like, this is wild. This is
Yeah.
where's people when you need them. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's important that they're there when the time is right, right? So that's what's
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah.
Um, so what do you do for a living?
I do a couple of things for a living. I am an author, as mentioned, and so I'm writing my second book right now as well. Well, my third book, the sequel to the book that you have read that we were going to talk about. And I'm also, yeah, I help authors. So I work with a publishing company. Actually, the publishing company that helped me publish my book, I joined their team, and so I'm helping them with other authors, just leading them into the process of publishing and helping them with their writing. And also, yeah, I do some ghostwriting for those who want to write a book, but they don't have that skill and they still want to put their stories out. So I help them bring that story out as well. So, and I also facilitate meditation classes and yeah, at the beginning of facilitating retreats now. So it's a couple of things are on the go.
I got you. I got you. Um, what's this? It says good info. Want to write a book? Yeah.
Yeah,
Hello,
absolutely.
hello, Rita. And it's crazy. So she said she want to write a book. This is like since childhood, I've been saying I'm gonna write a book, and so actually I've wrote two books. I never got them published because the manuscripts got lost because I've moved so many times, so it's got lost, and
Mm,
that kind of deterred me or discouraged me. But ever since then, I would say probably the last 10 years, I've been saying I want to write a
mm,
autobiography. And again, you inspired me because I was reading your book. The last couple guests I had on my platform, they have written books. So I was like, you know what? The time is now. Everybody around me is writing books.
yeah, there you go.
And so I want to write an autobiography, but with a spin on it. Because after reading your book, I was like, you know what? I want to write about my life, but in between the pages, let me break it down and give insight of who I am in my heart, right? In my inner self, right? So again, I give you credit for that.
Thank you.
And hopefully it comes into fruition, man. I'm a positive person, and I'm not one to say I'm just going to dream, 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 right? Because what's
Yeah.
a dream if you're not going to put in the work to try to make it come to
Yeah,
fruition?
absolutely. And I like to say that we're not really writing a book for ourselves. We're writing a book to put a message out there to the world, right? We're all unique in our stories and the way that we see life. And I think that we all have a gift. So yeah, I would say don't let your writer's block pull you away from continuing this and just go for it. And I mean, there are so many ways that people can have help. Like I said, for having, for publishing
Right.
the book. Sometimes it's not easy to just publish it on your own. Like I'm a writer, I'm not a publisher, right? And so doing that self-publishing on my own was like, I don't think so, and I just let it, I let it to in the universe. I actually wrote my book, and when I stopped finished my book, I was like, I don't know how it's going to come out, but I know that it's important and it does have to come out. So I'm gonna not be in the way and let life just guide me to the right people, and that is exactly what happened. And the synchronicities just came, and yeah, and I connected so well with my publisher, and it's been just such an amazing ride, and it's still so much fun just helping all of the other authors now, because like I'm remembering me when I was in the process of like releasing it and everything. And so it's easier than we think when we have the right people around us. So for sure I would recommend that you if it's not with me or with the company, there are people that do that. So you have to find your right fit. But yeah, if it aligns and you're having synchronicities like this, I think it's life just telling you like, hey man, it's time. Like just go
Right.
forward.
Right. I appreciate that, and I have no problem with going through you or your book publishing company. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, first step is putting in the work. I have to
Absolutely.
actually put pen to pad and start the process. Right now, the one comment Rita said, "I have poetry, no story. I have poems from when I was 12 years old, and I'm keep getting told to put it in a book. Now,
Yeah,
a book is a
absolutely.
book, right? And Rita, I also write poetry. I love poetry. I have a passion for it, like poetry and art. Right. That's two
Mhm.
things that's big for me, and I will encourage you to get it published. Because I
Yeah,
also want to
sure.
publish my poetry. Right? Like I just wrote two within the last couple of days, and so I just want to build off of that. And once it's enough poems so I can fill the pages of a book, then I will get that published as well.
Yeah.
So don't be discouraged, and don't let if that's a dream and a passion for you, Rita, just do it.
Absolutely.
You
And I
know.
would say, to anybody who wants to write a book with poetry, like there's so many ways that you can do this. You can write the poetry and then you can write kind of like reflections after each poems of your personal
Hmm.
kind of like way of wanting to
Right.
see them so that you give like key takeaways and things like that to the audience that is reading your book so that it becomes kind of like a very informal book for the audience, so it becomes more than just a poetry book. It becomes kind of like a way of bringing the reader to do the inner work, I would say, because yeah, whether it's spiritual, whether it's love poetry, it will inspire other people and they can do inner work with all of the words and the beautiful kind of like I would say flavor to all of your poetry for sure. Like I feel like poetry is, as you could see with my book, I feel like it's always art. What we put on paper is our expression, and just that is poetry to me. So
Right.
go for it.
Absolutely. Hello, Demarcus. Oh, Demarcus says, I definitely agree with you. Our story is for someone else's glory. So, yes. Then we have from Allison, sometimes your life struggling and good things help someone get motivated. All right.
Mhm,
And
absolutely.
and then this one's for you. Rita says thinks that's a cool idea as far as the reflection after each piece. And
Yeah.
I too think that's a great way to do it. Like if you write a poem and afterwards just write a little message or a paragraph or a couple paragraphs of where your mindset was and what drew you to that and how it just relates to your life. I think that's powerful. So it's
Mhm.
like you're getting the story with the poetry
Yeah.
and bridging those two together. It's a great idea. So
Creates magic.
so are you married?
I am not. I was married. I am no longer married. I was married back when I was 25 and separated at 31, unfortunately.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean, marriage is no easy task. I mean, I've never been married, but I'm just saying, just people around me, I know that's become the norm. It's especially with the way society is, with finances and, you know, yeah, money. They say money is the main cause of divorce.
Mm,
And if you have kids, it's trying to find that balance between home and work life, and or maybe your dream is not aligned with his dream, and it's a lot
exactly.
of things. And this marriage is difficult, right? Because now you don't have time, like so your book, right? It's about self-reflection and decompression and getting to know your inner self. And sometimes in a relationship, especially if you have kids, you don't have that time to do those things because
Yeah,
now you're trying to fulfill the voids of your partner or your significant other,
exactly. Yeah.
and they might not understand that. And now you're arguing all the time because you just need time to decompress and they just want to be up under you, right?
Hmm.
And that becomes a problem. I know I have recently went through the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Let me see.
Mm.
It's marriage, ha ha, ha, long
Yeah,
conversation.
long conversation for sure.
I mean, Rita, I don't know. I haven't spoke to you in a while, but I'm assuming you still married. I mean, but yeah, that is a long conversation. Marriage, relationships, commitment, those
Yeah,
are
yeah.
scary things. Those are things where it's sort of like love, right? We can't put our finger on it. We can't describe it. We
Mhm,
can't break it
mhm.
down. We don't understand it. It's so chaotic. It's very
Yeah,
much different, right?
there's so
But
many different perspectives.
In Ellie's book, she talks about that, right? Um, she talked about how you got to love yourself before anything else. Once you love yourself, everything else will fall in line, as long as you're in line with yourself. So
Yeah,
again, that's something we'll dive deeper into. Okay, Ellie, are you religious?
I am not religious.
Okay,
Nope.
is it a certain reason why, or
I don't believe necessarily that you have to be religious to believe it's something that is higher than yourself.
mm,
I believe in many concepts that have to do with religion sometimes, but I'm not. I do not identify with being religious. No, I'm
okay?
spiritual and
So
That's
There you go, spiritual. I was about to say, would you
spiritual.
classify yourself as being spiritual? Because, like I
Yeah.
said, I've been saying this for the past 2 weeks. That's become like the norm. So I asked everybody for the first time to get on my platform, are they religious? And it's become the norm. Everybody say, no, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. So,
Yeah. It's
like
not the same
that's the
thing.
new thing.
But
Yeah,
there is
I get it.
aspects of religion. That's what we still, the religion is not a bad thing in that sense. There's still some aspects of religion that are very beautiful, but you don't have to be stuck. I don't believe that you have to be stuck on one religion to say that you are spiritual. It's just find the bits and pieces that really resonate with you.
Right, right. All right. So, to the viewers, Ellie has written a book about connecting with one's inner self. The book explores the nature of self awareness, personal values, and the role of self reflection in personal growth and well being. Now, we keep talking about this book. There you go. I was just about to say it's called Letters from You to You.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not poetry, but the way she wrote it, it puts me in the mind of poetry. Right? It's your inner self having a conversation with you, right? And it's basically talking about how if you're in line with yourself, everything else in your life will be, it'll fall in line, right? So since you wrote the book, I'll let you elaborate on that a little bit. I'm pretty sure you can break it down a little bit better than me.
Sure. So it's composed of 21 letters, and the letters are all written from the perspective of your higher self. So it is like having a conversation with yourself throughout all of these letters, and you have to kind of like. Some people are at the beginning were like, I had to forget about like the fact that it was you, me, the writer, the author speaking to them, and really get into that perspective of like, I'm actually having a conversation with that part of me, that higher part of me right now. And what is that higher self wanting to tell me in this moment, right? So
Mhm.
there are letters that might be very triggering for some readers, and that's a very good thing because it means that you are looking at part of yourself that you've never really stopped and looked at, and taking responsibility for the patterns that are within you, and the stories that you tell yourself that are bringing you to suffer with the ego, unfortunately.
Mhm.
So you're kind of learning between the default self and the authentic self through this book, and knowing, you know, learning about the lies that you've been told all of your childhood, unfortunately, the conditioned self, and then just knowing that there is this higher self that is always there to bring you back into alignment and into love and to compassion. And yeah, it's composed of a couple of themes in there, but I'm eager to hear about what kind of like stuck to you and what inspired you through them all.
Well, I got you. But before I go into that, so Rita said, "Where can we get the book?" And then she said she so needed us today, right? So I'm assuming she was going through something, and
Yeah,
this brought meaning to her. So,
yeah,
and that's
Amazon.
all. That's always the goal. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Use Amazon.
yeah, Amazon.com .uk or .ca. It's right there.
Oh, there go that accent.
Yeah, right there.
Um, now to answer your question, like, so one of the things that stood out to me, right? You said when you detach yourself, you give space to others to choose whether they want to be with you, right?
Mhm.
And that's one message in the book that stood out to me, right? And it's a lot. Like every page, it was something that I was like, dang, it stuck with me. It resonated. But yeah, it says once you detach yourself, you give space to others to choose whether or not they want to be with you. What made you say that?
Well, attachment. So this is part of the letter number, I think it's number 4, the art of detachment. So it's
Right.
learning about how attachment is really the cause of our suffering, and especially in relationships and even like things, projects, whatever you want to call it, whatever is happening outside of you, we get to identify ourselves with the things and the people that are in our lives. And that causes us immense suffering, and we
Right.
believe that attachment is love, but really that attachment can be suffocating to the people in your life. So when you learn how to be well with detachment, it's not that you're not loving that person or the project that you're involved with. It's actually that you're creating space for that
Right.
thing and that person to be who they really are without your ideal of them being a certain way for you to be happy. And so, yeah, to answer your question, it's going to bring freedom. Let's say you're in a relationship, because I can use a relationship as easier to talk about when it comes to attachment. If you're a relationship and you're very attached to that person and you don't want to let go of that person because you feel like that person is your answer to your entire life because you're so in love with that person and you're just codependency is in there. If that person is wanting to express themselves as who they are and wanting to be who they are without that kind of like pressure of someone being so holding on to them, they will feel suffocated by that kind of
Right.
love, because it's not real love, it's attachment. So the more that you know how to detach yourself, the more that you're giving that space to someone to really just be who they are, and to choose if they want to be in your presence or if they
Right.
don't want to be in your presence. You can't force anyone to be with you, right? And I think that a lot of the times in relationship, and I've experienced it myself a couple of years ago, we're just we're attracted to the patterns of someone else, and then we get attached to that because this is something that is familiar to us in that moment, and we feel like that is love, but really that's not love. That's just an addiction that we
Right.
haven't really looked at. So this is why we get attached so quickly, because we're not getting attached to the person per se. We're attached to the same patterns that we see in that person. So
Right.
yeah.
And so what I get from that is, as you were speaking, it had my wheels turning, right? Because I like thought provoking conversations. I like, I like deep conversations, right? So what I get from that is it's like, being clingy, right? When you're being clingy, now you smothering them.
Yeah.
And that's not love. So when I said it's love is difficult to break down, right? It's like love is the unseen. Right,
Mhm.
it's one of those things where like I said, we can't describe it. So love is just this natural feeling that is just there. It's right. It's that energy. It's those vibes. Right. It's the vibration between you and another person or you and another thing, and that's vibrations. That's energy, and energy is not smothering. So I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense to me because love is also being free. Now, that's like if somebody holds you in captivity or they got you ball and chain or put a collar around you or something like that. That is not living free. That's
No.
not that that's not that space of freedom. That's bondage. That's smothering. That's holding them, detaining them. And
Mhm.
so I understand what you're saying. And like I said, I love that. I love the way you broke that down because love is love. Love should be pure. Love should be free, right?
Yeah.
It's like when people dance and they don't see nobody else. They just dancing. It's sort of like tunnel vision. They living carefree, right?
Yeah.
Versus
Yeah.
somebody that's they can't dance, but they really want to dance, but they so focused on the perception of other people. Now that brings up all this negative energy, and it's not living free. So that's
Mhm.
not love because you're not loving yourself because you putting others' thoughts before your own.
Mhm.
You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So
Absolutely.
that was powerful. You just unpacked a lot right there. Um, what's this? How do you fall out of a? I mean, it's a lot of ways a person can fall. I don't. I guess that's a question for you, Ellie. I don't know.
How do you fall out of love? What I would say, well, is that a question? Do you want to fall out of love?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to fall out of real love, but maybe you want to fall out of attachment love,
Right.
which
Right.
that would make sense, right? But yeah, I think that when you get to understand that we're kind of like loving through the filters of our conditioned self a lot of the time, and it's not really from our pure self, because
Mm,
the thing is that we don't really know ourselves fully.
right.
And that's the unfortunate part. We don't take that time to really just sit with ourselves and get to know the feelings inside of us, and where everything really comes from, and what is love to us, right? And not from the perspective of like what we've kind of like how we grew up and what we've seen from our parents and or what whoever that was in our lives when we were young. So I think that when it's our responsibility as an adult at one point to just say like, I want to experience my life and I want to experience love from a totally different, open way now that I get to have that freedom to get to know who I am before I want to get to know someone else so that I
Right.
can know how to love right in that sense.
Right. And I just want to touch back on something we was talking about before, right? When we say the word attachment, right? Because when you said attachment is not love. So when we attach to something, that means we're on something, right?
Yes,
So
exactly.
so when you on something, it's smothering, right? It's that clinginess we was just talking about. So that's not love to be on somebody, right? It's like holding somebody down against their will. That's nobody wants that. So it's about just living life, as it is, let things fall as they may. And you said that in your book. Let things fall as they may, right?
Yeah.
And that's what love is. It's just giving that person their personal space and the opportunity to say, "Hey, I want this at this moment," and vice versa. So, hopefully, Allison, that answered your question. Let's see, how do you escape something that is unhealthy but so familiar? So now they get deep. Sounds like a little trauma going on a little bit here with these two women, but you wanna jump on that, or you want me to?
Sure. I can jump on that a little bit. How do you escape something that is unhealthy but so familiar? Well, it's not so much about escaping. I think that it's about you just going inside of yourself and holding that space for the little girl, because this is what it is. When it's familiar and unhealthy, it's because it's a pattern inside of you that's never really been looked at or has never been healed. So it's kind of like that place within you that is screaming at you, or that little
Mm,
kid that is telling you like, I want to be healed. I want to be seen because I wasn't seen maybe when I was a little girl, and now it's time, and that's why it's becoming so unhealthy. So what you're realizing right now is that you're feeling it's unhealthy because it's your higher self that is kind of like nudging you to
mm,
go and do that inner work and go and find out how can you hold space for that part of you before you can actually get out of any situation that you feel that is toxic or unhealthy right now. So because if you get out of the situation, if you feel like right now you're experiencing something that is very unhealthy, and the familiar feeling, like I said, is that addiction to that pattern, that's why it's so familiar. You feel like that's normal, but it's not, and it's not natural. It's just that pattern that is just, it's the ego, right, that is wanting you to stay there because it's familiar, and it's telling you like this will help you stay in that false high. But
right,
really, like, my suggestion again, and it comes with the book, is like when you can sit down with yourself and just listen to that part of you and go and observe this, and then you embrace that part of you, and you heal that part of you. And it's not going to be comfortable healing that part of you, but it is a necessity if you want to be able to not continue that pattern in the next relationship. You have to do that work right now, because if you get out of the situation and you haven't done that work, you're not going to be going into another relationship with a new energy. You're going to be going into that relationship with that same energy because you didn't take the
same
time
issue.
to look at that part of you that needs that love from you,
Right,
not from
right,
anybody else, that needs that love from you. And that's
right,
really why it's unhealthy. So we tend to blame other people for why our relationships are not going well. But the thing is like, these people in your lives they're just the teachers to tell you, hey, you still have patterns, and I am showing you what your patterns are and where you need to go and heal. And that's God.
mm,
It's the universe just helping you, and that's
right.
why that's the new perspective that we have to see in relationships now. And so I don't know if that answers completely your answer,
Yeah.
like
No,
your
you
question.
you
Sorry,
you
but
you you speak so clearly and concise, right? And passionate, right? I can hear the passion behind every word. And you put me in the mind of a therapist. Right now, speaking about therapists, I have two therapists that I speak to, right? And you know, as you were speaking, right, it just made me remember something I was telling her last week. So my one therapist, Rita, says she loves it. uh I was talking about relationships, and as he was saying, like, you familiar with a certain individual, or you familiar with the relationship, but at times it just feels unhealthy, right? So we talked about that, and what she was able to extract from me was simple fact that, like, what I look for in a woman is for her to fill the voids in my life.
Yeah.
And she basically saying that that's not healthy. I shouldn't look for somebody else to fill those voids. I should self reflect, and I should fill my own voids,
Hmm.
and look for her to hold my hand and support me. Right. So
Yeah.
that's a work in progress, because it's a lot of things that, like, it's impactful and it makes sense, but it's like, as you try to apply certain things in your life, it's very difficult. So that
Mhm.
is something that I am actively working on. But I feel neglected a lot of times in my life. I feel unwanted, devalued,
Mhm.
unloved in my life, sort of a point where, like, when I get in a relationship, and now I'm just me in a, like, relationship, like, as a couple, but like friendships or whatever case may be, or family. That's why I'm not clingy, but it's like I cling on to that. I hold on to that for dear
Mhm.
life, because it's something that was absent in my life, right? So now when it's present, I hold on to that, and I
Yeah.
have these high expectations to the point where sometimes my expectations are unreasonable.
Yeah.
But it's because everybody on this face of this earth want love, right? We always talk about how women want love. No, men want love too.
Yeah.
Animals want love, right?
Yeah.
Love and security. As long as we have that, we feel like we're rich, right? We feel like
Yeah.
we're on the top of the mountain, and that's why, like, in a relationship, or when I'm dealing with somebody, I, I, if they make me feel important, they make me feel like a man, they make me feel whatever. I look for them to fill voids in my life, right? So, like I
Mhm.
said,
Mhm.
that's going to take some time for me to get out of that mindset, but hey, that's who I am, and I feel like a lot of us is like that in life.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I think it's just a matter of, you know, looking at all of that, becoming the witness. And so in the next book, I will be addressing more of the witness consciousness practice, but it's an entire journey of witnessing your, yeah, that part of you that is into these pattern like every day of your life, that there's always something triggering us. And we just had to start really being in the practice and participating in that sense where we observe it from an impersonal self, and then we just hold space for it, and then we let it go. But we have to release all of this first, and so
right,
there's a process to be done, but you're never going to stop having voids in you in some way, because you're human, right? We're here to have a human experience, and so we're here to grow. And so the most important thing that we can do right now is just to look at it and to observe it, and really just to sit with the pain and transcend it
mm,
and then release it. And that's what we do all of our lives.
absolutely, absolutely. So from letters from you to me, right? That's your second book, correct?
No, no, the second book, actually, I'm not sure about the title, but it's I'm wanting to speak about higher. So really bringing people to understand what higher means. And
Okay.
so the title that I have right now is called Written from Higher, but it might change. It's not it's not
Oh. So this is
info.
your first book.
This was my second book, but my third one will be the sequel to this one. So
I,
to this
I
one.
got you. I got you. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So Ellie, let me ask you something. Is consistent self-reflection necessary for personal growth and happiness?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, from the perspective of your witness, you're
Mm,
witnessing it, right? So
right.
you're not being always involved in it, because being involved in it means that you're you're participating in the stories, and that's the ego. So you want to shift from identifying with your self-reflection and the stories to becoming the
Right.
witness, and really understanding what the truth is about what all of this is, what your reality is.
Right. And one of the quotes that I wrote down from your book, right? You said, "Never fall in love because you are already in love."
Mhm.
Right. Like, and I've read that over a couple times, and you know, now with that's just a passage I took from it. What the readers or the viewers are not seeing is what came before and what came after, right? So again, the whole premise of your book was just talking about connecting with your higher self, right? So what I got from that is, it says, never fall in love because you're already in love, right? Meaning with yourself. As long as you love yourself, right, and you hold yourself to a standard and you put yourself on a pedestal, then it's nobody else that can present love in a better way,
Yeah.
right? Because anything we do in life, it starts with self, right?
Yeah.
Is that where you was? That's the direction you was going with that.
Yeah. So how I received it, because remember these are letters that I received from my higher self, and that's just my small self that invented things.
Right,
But what is actually happening is like that's the illusion. It's we think that we're falling in love with someone else, but really we're already in love. We're in love, and so
right,
when there's someone that appears in front of us, and there is something that creates this love inside of us, it's not that we're falling in love with that part of them. We actually
right,
have that inside of us, and it's just they are just reflecting these parts of love that we have inside of us
right.
to us. That's it. That's what's happening, right? So we're always just falling in love with ourselves. That's how I can say it, through someone else.
Okay. Now, it's what should have been one of the first questions I asked you, but like, what inspired you, and what motivated you into writing this book?
Um, Inspiration came from actually an insight that I received in a meditation. I was at a place, another level of surrender. I would say I had to surrender to the unknown another time in my life, because I surrendered to the unknown really a lot of times, but there was just another level of surrender, a deeper surrender that I needed to experience. So that was back in 2023 of December, and I was just really going through a lot of loss. I was actually, we spoke about the fact that I had businesses, and that business I had for 7 years, and it was just falling. It was falling apart, and I needed to learn how to just let it go. And it was difficult because we tend to identify with the things and people in our lives, right? So I was identifying with that business, and I identified with that for quite some time. And so now I needed to kind of like die of that self. So
Hmm.
I sat down and I just decided to sit down in meditation, because I was just about ready to really just surrender and say, I have nothing to do right now. And I'm letting my life or my higher self or God just take over right now to give me the answers that I need. And when I thought that it was just going to be a meditation, it was actually more than that, because it clearly told me in that meditation that I had another book to write, and that
Hmm.
I had, like, they gave me the title, and I say they because it was just that energy gave me the exact title. And so yeah, I was kind of like, wow, okay, I was not expecting that. And so that was my first inspiration. And then I sat down and I right away I started to write my intro, and I had no idea how these letters would unfold. And I started with the intro, and then I just started with one theme, which was time. And I let that higher energy just come through me and give me the message that I needed to receive, and as much for myself and for everybody who is, experiencing this book. And it was such a beautiful ride, because I was not expecting that, right? And so it was kind of like I was out of the way completely, and just an open vessel, an empty vessel to receive all of this information. And yeah, and it was really beautiful, and at times painful as well, because I needed to. I was also triggered by my own letters, to be honest, at some
Okay.
points. And I was like, okay, but I still have to get out of the way, and this needs to come out the way that it's coming out, and that's good. So yeah.
Now you mentioned time and you mentioned triggers, right? Which is apropos because your first two letters, the first one is time, and the second one is emotional triggers. So without giving too much away from those two letters, can you give us a little insight on time and then the letters about emotional triggers? Because I
Yeah,
thought both of
sure.
them was powerful.
Yeah. So time, actually, I started with time because I felt like that was what made the most sense. Where to be able to connect to that higher self, you need to make that priority every single day of
Hmm.
your life. And people have a tendency to really, just not take the time for that. They take the time for everybody else in their lives and their projects and their work and everything, but they don't take the time to be in alignment with that higher self and that love and
Mm.
that divinity, if you want to call it that, or the universe, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't matter, but it has to be something that is higher, that energy that feels like wholeness. And
Right.
what I've received in these letters from time is that, it's not about making more time and having that burden of time. It's about making space so that energy, your higher self, only wants you to create space so that you can receive it every single day of your life, every moment. It's always with you. It doesn't have
Mm.
time. It's timeless, right?
Right.
So that is part of the first one. So about time, and there's much more to it, but yeah, I would say about time. Time is an illusion, right? For that place that we want to call divinity, and
Hmm.
um, and giving us that relief that how can we create more space in our lives instead of creating more time, getting detached again from that concept of time and just realizing that we are always here and everything is just here for us, so it's not in that the space and time. And then for emotional triggers, well, that's a really long letter. And it's a pretty triggering one because yeah, it's a letter that is pretty direct, I would say, but it's very important to understand where these triggers come from. So it's really just an understanding of letting you know, like, that when you are being triggered by anything or anyone and you're reacting out of that trigger, it is your patterns that are just being triggered, right? And it's your ego that is wanting to have a reaction and wanting to participate in an argument. And so how can you step back and really observe, like, the triggers and the emotion, where did they come from? And so by having that awareness, being able to go inside of yourself, and instead of reacting to something, just taking a step back and saying, like, where is this energy coming from? Like, who is
Right.
reacting right now? Is this my authentic self reacting? The authentic self is not supposed to react. It's responding but
Right.
not reacting. Or is it that part of me that is just so familiar with whatever is happening in front of me that wants to participate again in this and is not going to go anywhere anyway, right? And this is what creates conflict in all of the world, is that people don't take that time and make that space to really observe, like, why am I feeling this way? Why is this person getting to me? What is happening right now? Why are we in this argument? And how can I just relax, go and take some space for about 20 minutes and really look at, like, this is not about what's happening outside of me. This is because I have something inside of me that needs to be healed, and I have
Right.
to take that responsibility for my life to get better, because we can't always just be bothered by everything that happens outside of us. The reason why we're bothered by everything is because we're bothered inside first,
Right.
right? So the emotional triggers, it's like I said, it's a long
Letter.
letter, but I feel like it's one of the most powerful in the book. So I've been told,
Yeah.
because
Well,
it's just truth, you know.
yeah, it is very powerful. But I say, so, obviously, like I said, the book is like what, 160 pages, I believe it was.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Looking,
So
yeah,
I read the first 120. So, like I said, I still got more to read in it. So this is the thing. As I was reading them, after each letter, I took the time and said, you know what did I get from that? What did I gain? And this is the thing, is for me it'd be hard to break down what's more like important or more significant, because in each letter there's a significance in it.
yeah.
And I kid you not, after reading each letter so far, it put a smile on my face, and I was like, this is powerful. This is thought provoking. It's informative, and it's just creative genius, right? Like, because
Mhm.
I love art. I love poetry. I love words. In school, my favorite subject was English and creative writing.
Oh,
Because
that's
I've
amazing.
always been writing poetry, and I love writing stories. When all the other students in the class was like, "Oh my god, I got to write what?" I was all for it. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I get to write like thesis and all that stuff." Oh yeah, I'm all for it. And I just always had a passion for writing, right? No matter what it was,
Mm.
because it allowed me to exercise my mind. A lot of people forget about that, right? Like they work out in the gym. Your mind is just the biggest muscle in your body. You
Yeah.
work your mind, everything else will fall in line with itself. Like, you when you say in your book, get to know your inner self,
Yeah.
your higher self. Well, your higher self is your mind. That's why it comes on top. That's why it's in your head, and everything else is below it. So once you get in line with your inner self and your mind, hey, everything else will fall in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the reason why people feel like it feels like it's poetic is because when you're actually reading this book, or at least I hope that you are aligned with that part of yourself. And so everything
Mm-hmm.
is flowing. And when there is poetry, it's because it is that. It's creative energy. And creative energy is just within you automatically when you get to connect to that higher self. And so people feel like it's poetic because, and also the reason that the way that I wrote the book, I didn't plan on it to be that poetic. Again, it's
Oh,
because it's intuitive writing. So because I'm connected to that space and that higher self, there it's just a flow that comes through me. And
right,
so the way that it's been, written, it because it's from the perspective of your higher self, it's that love and that higher energy that is speaking to you. So it's going to bring some beautiful kind of like words to soothe you. It's going to be
right,
direct a lot of the time, but it's also going to bring you back into the compassion and the love and the soothing and just embracing, that the inner child while you are being triggered, maybe through what you're writing and the truth that you're learning about yourself, and dissolving that, the dissolving of the ego through it, right? So you're making space again to just be inspired. And when you're being inspired really means being in spirit. That's what really inspired
mm,
means. And so while you're in that state, you're going to be receiving something a lot more differently than if you're just reading information from the perspective of your mind. So when you say that your mind is in awareness, is that the thing is the mind is just a tool, and the heart, it has to be connected to the heart to be able to receive these kind of conversations, right? Because the
right,
mind is always going to, the mind when it's connected to your ego is always going to try to kind of like push it away, because it doesn't want to hear
right,
that. It wants to stay in the protective mode and the righteousness and all of these emotions that make us suffer.
right.
So
It's
but when you get to connect with your heart and you use your heart to connect, the connection to your heart and your mind together, then you can receive information that really resonates with your soul, and really,
mm,
and that's why I say if you take your time, it's better, because now you're actually, and if you even read the letters at different points in your life, or in moments of your days, you will be receiving that information from a totally different frequency. And so it will
mm,
hit differently, right? So
right.
yeah, that's where I feel like that's where the poetry kind of feeling comes from. Because to be honest with you, I have no idea what I was doing while I was writing that book in that sense, right? It wasn't my mind that was doing
Right,
it.
right,
It was my heart, it was
right,
my spirit that was writing this. So I would get even surprised when I would reread the letters and be like, holy shit, I just rhymed here. Like I'm right. I felt like the words were dancing on paper kind of thing, right? And I was like,
right,
this
right,
is so cool. And I amazed my own self, right? Because that's like what I say. It's not my mind that is creating this, it's my heart. And so it comes from
right.
a different place. Yeah.
And so the one thing I want to say is, to anybody that's watching, like, that goes back to what I always say on my platform is just like, if you have a passion in life, right, just pursue it. You see how she told you the words was dancing off the page, and it just made her face just light up. She got this glow and this aura about her. You could hear the passion every time she speaks. So writing this book meant so much to her. And so anybody that has a dream or have a passion, just pursue it, because you too will feel that way. You too
Yeah.
will find that solace. You'll find that happiness and that joy, and that's something a lot of people in the world lack, right? That sense of self, that sense of enjoyment, right?
Yeah.
Um, so when you're happy, everything else is happy.
Yeah.
Because we are creatures of habit, and we attract people in our likeness, right? So if we negative, we attract negative people. If we positive, we attract positive people. See, the difficult thing is this: a lot of people that's positive, they sit there and say they don't like negative people, right? But in all actuality, they do, because they're at war with themselves. They haven't found their
Mhm.
inner selves or their higher selves, as you will put it in your book. So once you connect with your inner self, then you'll realize that, hey, I'm contradicting myself now.
Yeah.
I want to be positive, and I want positivity around me. So that's the thing. You got to take a step back, and you got to reevaluate yourself, and you got to make those adjustments, right? And if you can't make those adjustments, that means your mind and your heart is detached. You got to link them together. You got to connect them, and then you will find that peace and that happiness, and everything else will be smooth sailing after that. Because once your mind and your heart is connected, it's nothing greater than that, right? Because everything is going to work in unison, right? Everything is going to be congruent.
For sure.
So the one thing, Ellie, that I loved about the book is not in every letter, but a lot of the letters, you constantly reminded the reader, right? Like you said, if you're still reading this, right, that means it's resonating with you. For I'm just paraphrasing here, and I like that because a couple times, I'm reading it. Every time I ran across that, and I was still reading, I was like, okay, yeah, she reeled me in. Like, this is the thing. It means I got something from it. And that's what makes us continue to read something, right? It piqued my interest. It resonated with me. So I continued to read it. And then you kept reminding me, like, if you're still reading this, it's because you said your inner self, right? Your higher self, it's not just within me, it's within you as well. It's within whoever is around us. And it goes back to what I said about the positivity. If I'm positive, I want positive people around me. That's just a reflection of who I am because that's what my expectations are. That's what I want out of life, right? And that's what I'm looking for. So, like I said, kudos to you. That was very powerful, and I loved it, man. Like I said, I look at it as being poetry because it's the way you crafted it. It's genius.
Thank
It's
you.
genius.
Thank you. Credits to
No
the higher
problem.
self.
Well, yeah, without him, it wouldn't be us, you know what I'm saying? So just like our parents, without your parents, it wouldn't be no you, right? So like credit to your parents as well. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now, your book tells us that self-reflection helps us understand our values, identity limiting beliefs, and make conscious choices aligned with our inner self, right? Now, do you believe that excessive introspection can lead to self-doubt and negativity hindering our progress?
Can you reframe that? I would love to hear the perspective a little clearer.
Okay, so do you think like excessive self-reflection, right? Do you think that would hinder our progress in life?
I guess like what I was explaining earlier is it depends how you are self-reflecting. If it becomes an obsession,
Right.
again, that is the ego that is trying to get something. So if you're over seeking to understand, that is your ego mind that is wanting that kind of like confirmation. You want
Okay.
to have these moments where you can just sit with yourself, and there is a letter in the book that is called remembering me in stillness, because all of the information is already within you. When you can sit with yourself in silence, you get a lot more information than if you're just trying really hard to again go and do the work, in that sense
Right.
where you're almost looking for broken pieces inside of you. You don't have to
Mm.
worry about broken pieces inside of you. If you start doing the inner work, these patterns and everything that triggers you are going to come up on their own. And you don't need to make that much effort into it, but you have to stay in the participation of the awareness of all of it. So it really depends how, bye, Rita.
Right.
Yeah, it depends how you're looking at it. But you have to know the difference between, is it my ego that is wanting to be obsessed with this, or is it my higher self, my authentic self that is ready to understand something deeper, but it is willing to allow things to just show up to show me who I am and who I'm not. Like I would say that is the difference between, because yes, it can become obsessive work,
Right.
and we don't want to go down that
Now,
road.
one of the reasons why I asked you that is because throughout my life, I have a lot of ups and a lot of downs, just like anybody else in life, right? And so like at this stage of my life, I often tell people that I'm at peace with a lot of things, right? I am okay with just having me time and not having to deal with other people. Now, one of the reasons why I ask you that is because lately people have been telling me that I I'm fixated on time way too much. Right.
Mm.
I need to get out there and I got to interact with other people and I have to vent and bounce ideas off, off other people, as opposed to just always sitting by myself and just shut myself away from everybody else.
Mhm.
So that's what made me ask that, man. Because like to me, I'd be like, I keep saying I'm at peace with it, but I don't know if I'm really at peace with it or if it's
Mhm.
the unseen or if it's another thing that's preventing me from getting out there, right? Because I have other opportunities. There's people that's in my circle, or people that's trying to assist or help in situations,
Mhm.
but it's like I don't know. I have this thing about me where I'm like, you know what? Nobody's gonna care about me like I care about me. Nobody's gonna love me like I love me, right? So I'd rather just harbor everything and just hold everything to myself and just, you know what I'm saying? And not meaning like I'm being like toxic or nothing like that. It's just like sometimes I just rather be by myself. And
Yeah.
and lately people will say it can't be like that all the time, right? Like especially if it's like 3 days in a row and I'm still feeling that way, then like you have to open up a little bit. Have to get out there and grow.
Well, I feel like there are seasons for everything. So if you are in a season where your solitude is a priority for you right now, that means that you can allow that to be. And of course, there's always going to be all of these, the opinions of other people that are going to be looking at this situation from their own perspective. And
Hmm.
so it is really for you, like I said, to know like what is good for you right now. If you feel right now that you're in a season of like, I need this solitude, I need to be with myself more, then go and respect that from you. And
Right.
you will be ready to know when the time is right for you to get into another season of your life where you're like more ready now to interact with a lot more people. But I would say this is really something that only you can know the answer to when you're with yourself in stillness and just like allow what is here right now. What is life wanting you
Right.
to listen to?
All right. So, um, are our emotions a reliable guide to our inner selves?
They can be from the
Mm-mm.
perspective of the witness, because we can get involved in our emotions from stories too often with the ego, and then we get lost.
Mm-mm.
Emotions to me is kind of like it's a vibration that we receive from our higher self to let us know where we are at with whatever situation is going on. It's a vibration, right? And again, if you sit with yourself and you look at these emotions from the impersonal self, you'll be able to see if it's worth continuing to be in the emotion, or is it good to just let it go. And again, holding the emotion, knowing where the emotion comes from as well, and just taking that time to really just hold space for the whatever you're feeling, but then knowing how to let it go, knowing how to release it, and then let it
Mm-mm.
go. You don't want to get attached again to emotions, right? Because then you're just
Mm-mm.
playing the game of the ego and in the attachment. But you don't want to continue to stuff them down either, right? Because
Right.
that's not better. Because if you're stuffing them down, they're just going to get louder and louder and louder until you go and look at them.
Right. You know, so one of the guests I recently had on the show, right? They asked me to close my eyes, and at first I was like, "What?" And so the whole purpose was they said, "Close your eyes and then ask yourself or ask your mind, what's the next step?"
Mhm.
And then when I did that, it's crazy. Before she said anything, I was thinking to myself, like, I asked myself, I'm like, what's next? And it's like my mind drew a blank, right?
Mhm.
So when she asked me for the answer, I was like, I mean, it was like darkness. I mean, I didn't really have an answer. It's like, it's basically asking myself what is next. And it's like, it had me stuck. So basically what she was saying is, that's what we got to do, right? When we get in touch with our inner selves, it's about taking, self-reflection, right? You by asking yourself what's the next step, and you can hit that roadblock, and it's like, oh, you get that dark space where you don't know what to say.
Mhm.
It's slowing your mind down. Sometimes we gotta, as people, we have to slow our minds down a little bit, right? So we can digest and process everything else. that's
Yeah.
going, around it. So that's one thing I picked up from her. And like I said, hey, I love doing this podcast thing. It's very therapeutic to me. And like I said, it works on my social skills, and it just allows me to interact with different people. And it's like I gain something every time I do this, right? So just like
Absolutely.
when you wrote your book and put that smile on your face, when I do this, it just does something for me. It makes me feel
Mhm.
more alive, right? It's like I'm resuscitated, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good. Um, Let me ask you this: should we prioritize expressing our true inner selves, even if it conflicts with social expectations?
Yes. Your authentic self is priority. Always. You have to remain who
Mm,
you are, even if it
mm,
means that you might be, I don't know, disappointing maybe other people and getting opinions from other people, because you want to walk free in this life, right? You don't want to continue to step on eggshells and just try to impress everybody and get validation from other people. That's insecurity. That's your ego. That's wanting to gain something outside of you. So I would say absolutely. I mean, I'm all for authentic, and I went through that phase when I was a little younger, where I thought that I needed to be someone else to please other people and the opinions of
right,
others, and afraid of judgment. And I have no time for this today. Like, I don't want to waste my energy anymore. I know who I
right,
am, and you know what? I get to know who I am to a deeper level every single day of my life. There's not one day that I don't surprise myself as to, like, oh, there's another layer that I have to let go of because I have to be myself more, right? And so
right,
once you're doing this work, you can't go back. You can't go back, and
right,
so you can't be nothing else but authentic. So,
right.
yeah.
Now you preach it right now, and the one thing is this, man. I would love to say it should be a balance, right? But on the other hand, I almost don't want to say it's a balance, right? Because this is the thing. Once we allow, oh, let's find the balance into our mind, right? Once we entertain that notion, right? It's like now things get a little muddy. It gets a little
Mhm.
murky, right? Because now we're conflicting, like, oh, I got to put myself first. I have to love myself first, and I can't worry about expectations or this person's opinions. But when you try to find a balance, and now you're at war with yourself, now you're juggling, like, now it's like you straddle on the fence, like, should I this, should I not? And I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
that, like, that's not living free, right? Like,
Yeah,
so that's where it gets hard. But if I do know that if it's not a balance, it's also difficult, right?
yeah.
So connecting with your higher self, it's a process, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a process. It's like I said, it's a daily practice, and you're not going to get it from like one day to another. It's not a quick fix,
Right,
and you just got to embrace these moments, even the moments of doubts and just wondering like how to present yourself to whatever situation. I mean, you're going to be learning from that anyway, right? So
right,
yeah. Yeah, it is a balance, but it's a beautiful balance when you, like I said, when you can step back and look
yeah,
at it from the perspective of that detached self, right? And
right,
not get involved too much into the stories about all of it.
right. So in other words, what you're saying is, think about things, but don't overthink
No,
things, right?
ever.
Because once you get to that realm of overthinking, then it's like just like anything else in life. Too much of anything it's not good
Yeah,
for you, right? So
exactly.
that's what I okay. So
Yeah.
is it essential to discover a life purpose to find meaning and fulfillment?
Is it essential to discover a life,
Life purpose to find meaning and fulfillment.
your life purpose, from my perspective and from what I've listened to from my higher self, is just to be the most you that you can every day.
Mm,
I believe that our purpose is to evolve every single day and just be happy and content with, living our lives as best as we can in the present moment, and
mm.
detaching again from the ego mind.
Oh,
I you
okay,
know there's a lot of talk on purpose, and there's a lot of people that seem to want to make a big thing out of purpose, but for me, purpose is very simple. It's just, I just
right,
want to be me every single day. I want to be able to be in awareness and make that the most simplest and the most important thing like every single day of my life, and that is enough. That's my purpose.
Right. And I love that you said that, because that's another thing I discussed with my therapist, right? Like my therapist actually asked me, like, like I said, a week ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, about my purpose. What is purpose to me, and what is my purpose? Or what do I think my purpose is in life? And I've kept it simple as well. I said my purpose is just being the best version of myself, right? And just
Mhm.
succeeding. And so for my therapist, she said that's vague, right? She kept telling me to dig deeper and give it more thought. And then I was stuck. I was like, well, I don't know what you're looking for. You asked me for what my purpose was and what purpose mean to me.
Yeah.
And that's what it means to me. So that's another reason why I asked you that, because sometimes other people have different ideas, man. But
Yeah.
like my purpose is to be the best version of myself. I mean, I don't know how else to put that. Like,
Yeah.
uh and the best version of me. I mean, I get what she's saying. Like, it's kind of broad, because that's a lot of things that can go under that. Like, because I can give you bullet points for days. Like, one of the things I always wanted to do was just to give back to the less
Mhm.
fortunate, right?
But then
And I
if
can't.
you're yourself every day, if you're
Yeah,
your authentic self every single day, all of the rest comes with it. Your giving back is with it. Everything is with it. But the
yeah.
first thing that you have to be is you, is in the most
Hmm.
purest you that you can find in every single day, and the rest will follow. It's just
Right,
that's why the only purpose should be to focus on, just being your authentic self and free.
right,
That is what's going to free you. And I think that everybody is looking for a sense of freedom, and that should be their purpose, to continue to
right,
free themselves from their conditioned self and just be pure love and light to the world.
right,
Everything is going to unfold just naturally
right.
from them. Yeah.
Right, yeah, it's because, like I said, and to add to that, it's just, like I said, it's about growth as well, man. Because a lot of people, they harp on, or they what you call it, they overcritical of their past mistakes or their failures, man. Like, and you mentioned in the book, like something about failures. Like, if you fail, they'll make you a failure, right? Like,
Yeah,
um, so it's actually what shaped us and mold us to who we are. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
And if you sit there and you exhaust that much time and energy in thinking about your past failures or mistakes, then that means you care. As long
Mhm.
as you care, that's a connection with your mind and your heart, right? That means you trying to connect with your inner self. And as long as you do that, as long as you have that mindset where you want to do better, you will do better, right? And one of those letters in your book, it was about doers, or what
Being,
was it?
being or
Yeah,
doing.
being and doing, and that was important to me too. That's why I told you, like, each letter has something for me to just grasp onto.
Mhm.
Uh, so speaking about the book, um, so tell me about, or tell me and the viewers about certain passages about any one of the letters that you want to add to this episode to talk
Passages.
about.
Oh, there are so many. I have not prepared myself for any passages, but I can find something if you want.
I mean, you can paraphrase if you want. I mean, just talk about the book. You know what I'm saying? This is, like I said, I'm hoping that, people that view this, they'll go back and get the book. We already have Rita said she want to get it. Oh, speaking about the book, before you
Yeah,
go into what you was going to say,
yeah.
now, I have a copy of your book. So is there a way I can get a book from you, so I can get the autograph book?
You could, but I would have to ship it to you. So because
No,
I do
that's
have
that.
copies with me. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine, because I think an autograph will be meaningful. And I can be
Yeah.
like, look what I got. It's autographed.
Yeah. So what I can say about the book, something that I did that I thought it was really cool, and I didn't know that I was doing it, like I said, because everything was just coming and being channeled, um, is that number 11. So letter number 11 is called Merge With Me.
Hmm.
And that letter is really special because it kind of splits in a way, like all of the letters, it kind of goes in in the middle of like two different energies. So the beginning of the book, and this is I'm saying this because I've had comments of people that have seen it this way, and I realized as well when the book was out and everything, and I reread all of my letters from another time. I was like, wow, this is what's really happening with this book, and it's so cool. So the beginning of the book, the first couple of letters, so the first 10 letters, they are all meant to really just bring you to look at your conditioned self and see the lies that are within you from when you were really really young, and it can be direct and triggering, and there's still a lot of love into that, but you feel a little bit more like, oh, there's heavy truths in there that you're looking at yourself and really being like, wow, okay, there is a lot of work that you're doing in these letters. And then number 11 brings you back to love with your inner self. So your inner being is now speaking you to let you know that when you do this work and when you've healed that wounded self, how magical life is now to be experienced. Like, because now you're not as bothered anymore from the chaos that is outside of you, because you've made space inside of you and you're able to receive so much more beauty, so much more love, so much more compassion. And it's kind of like there's an ease and there's a flow to your life that happens because you've made that space and you've discovered who you really are, And the other half of the book, after that letter, that is actually, it's a letter that brings you into this world, into this beautiful world of pure love and light and just joy, right? And then all of the other letters are, again, they're going to be bringing you into practicing that love and that compassion, and they're just a lot more soothing. I feel like they're less triggering, and they're just showing you what is true joy, showing you what is true love. And so like I said, I didn't know that I kind of did that in the book, but it's kind of like the beginning is a little bit more triggering, and then the rest is like, oh, I'm coming on the other side of this. And now I'm able to receive it because I've been prepared to let go of the junk before. And now I've made space to be really, really open to listen to that part of myself. Right.
Okay.
So I think that is a beautiful experience that you can receive with the book, because sometimes you're going to read a book and there's always like lessons for sure in books, but you may not have been left with kind of like a sense of like, oh, I feel more empty. I feel more at peace. And I feel like the transition of like the letters from the beginning to the end, that is the kind of like what it's doing throughout the book within yourself. You're getting to at the end where you're like, oh my God, like I feel so much more lighter now.
Right.
So,
It's like a whole body cleanse, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
Right. And you say you didn't do that intentionally, to write it that way?
No. I had no idea I was
Interesting.
doing that.
Because as I was reading, that's one of the things I was thinking. Like, I wonder if she had a format, if she had a direction. And then speaking about that, okay, so when you wrote it, did you write like each letter at different periods, or did you sit there, like, did you write it individually and you just piece it together? Say, all right, I'm gonna put this first, put that second.
Like I said, it was really intuitive. So I wrote the book within a month. The first half of it was written I was in a state of the unknown, like I said, right? So I needed answers myself. So that's why the first half was probably more intense in that sense, because I needed to have that clarity. And the second half of it, it was, I wasn't exactly in the same space, but I was still, it was still done very shortly, because now I was motivated or inspired to finish it quicker, because I just had that momentum, right? I had released myself a lot of things in the first couple of letters, and now it was kind of like another part of me that it was just kind of like, okay, I want to finish this in ease and in love, and just be curious about that higher self with these letters. So
Got you. Now, a couple questions that come to mind is, did you write any letters in the same day, or was it all broken down like separate? Like, so you go ahead.
I would sit down for like 4 hours at a time and write.
Okay, you was moving. So would this one be your second one, right? What challenges did you find writing the first one versus the second one?
Well, the first one, I was way younger. I was about 28, 27 when I wrote the book, but it got released when I was 28 or 29. And the first book was more about my personal stories. So I had a little bit more, difficulty there because I was getting in the way. Because when you
Mm.
write about your personal life, then you're like, oh, should I say that? Should I not say that? What are people going to think?
Right,
Am
right,
I
right.
over explaining myself? Whatever you want to do with your dialogue in your mind. So I would say that, yeah. And of course, like I didn't have the maturity that I have today. So I would say that was kind of like the struggle that I had with the first one. Either, although I still kind of like wrote it within 3 months, which was really good for a first time.
Oh
But
wow, 3 months and
yeah,
they won one. Whew.
yeah, it was still a pretty good thing. And then the second book, so this one I wrote within a month because I wasn't getting in the way at all.
Right,
I was just like, I didn't like at some point I really just didn't care, in the sense where this has to come out the way that it comes out, and I'm not going to second guess any of it because it needs to be said that way. This is how I
right,
received it. I don't have to question it. And so it was actually really fun because of the way that I was writing it, right? A lot more
right,
fun
right,
than when I write from my personal stories. And when you're writing from personal stories, there are details in there that you may not want to revealed, right? So now that kind of style of book where it's all, like you said, it's all poetic, it's all flowing. I'm just having fun. It's just my
right,
intuition.
right,
I'm not
right,
second
right,
guessing anything, and I'm actually surprising myself. So that's why it was so much fun, right? Yeah.
right. Now in writing this one, right? From letters from you to me, from you to you, was some of your creativity, some of your thought process built on like childhood traumas or anything like that?
Yeah, well, actually, if you read the entire book, you'll see, well, you won't see because you don't know exactly, but if you read between the lines, I've been through all of that. This is why it comes out the way that it comes out. Like these are all lessons for me, and for
Right,
what I've been through, and what I've understood about myself and my ego. And yeah, and so without it being personal, it's still things that I needed to learn for my own life because of all of the events that I've gone through. So if you see things about, I don't know, like maybe relationships at one point, and I know that I'm not sure exactly what letter it is, but it has to do with love, where I talk about where, sometimes you're going to meet someone and you're going to think that you're falling in love with them, but you're not really falling in love with him. You're falling in love with the triggers, with the patterns
right,
inside of you. And that person is there to show you that you're not healed yet. Well, that's because I
right,
went through that.
right.
I
Now
went through
it's
that.
funny. It's funny you said that because yeah, I remember you was talking about that, and I looked because I was looking at the chat. I was like, "Which can I pinpoint which one it was?" But I can't. But I do remember you talking about that. And so, like I said, and reading it, the first, like in the very beginning, I was like, "This girl went through some shit in her life."
Yeah.
But then I was like, "Well, is the whole book based off of traumas, or did it start off that way and it just flow through you and you just build off of one trauma or one situation?" So I
Yeah.
guess that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I think that I had some, because like I said, because I was kind of like just in a space where I was in the unknown at that point when I was writing the book. I
Right,
wasn't really getting too much into my stories, so much that I was allowing my life to just give me answers. So it wasn't kind of like I was thinking about a story and then I was writing. No, I was seriously just like just coming out, coming out, coming out, and I would reread the letters and then I would remember, oh my God, this speaks to me about like my time where I met this guy and I thought I was in love with him, but like,
right,
no, just like it was toxic as hell because anyways, so it was really funny because I would now relate whatever I would have written. I related it to my stories, and I'm like, oh, this is why it came out that way, because I needed to hear it that way so that I can heal completely from that shit.
hmm,
So yeah, it was funny. And to be honest with you, like there are letters in there that I had reread, and I was bawling, like crying. And I'm like, what
oh
the
wow,
hell? What the hell did I just write here? Why am I feeling this way? Like I had releases while I was writing. So you asked me like what was the challenges, I would say it wasn't so much in the writing that was the challenges, it was in the reading myself back that was a challenge,
Right.
because I was going through other levels of healing, like, and releasing through what I was reading. Is
And
crazy.
you think that's more so because you had to relive whatever traumas that inspired you to write that? Is that what it came from?
Yeah,
Taking you back to a
it
time?
was it was bringing me back, but it was also bringing me relief, because in these moments of bawling, I was always also feeling a lot of relief, in the sense where it's like, oh, there's something that's actually getting off of my shoulders right now, and it was just like,
Right.
oh, and that's why I was crying most of the time. So it wasn't so much that I was crying because like I was remembering a situation per se, but more so because I was releasing myself from that bondage, from whatever toxic energy that I needed to die from. That's
Right.
exactly this where I was in my life at that time. I was dying of something that was deeper.
Right.
And so
Right.
that book, that writing helped me transition in that. And I had more, layers to peel off after that, for sure. We're never done, but that was a big,
Right.
big, big, yeah, it was
And,
a
and,
big revelation in my life.
and then, and speaking of, connecting with our higher self, right, and or our inner self, like it's about healing, right? And at
Mhm.
the end of the day, that's when we talk about perseverance, right, progression. Um, it starts with healing, right? Once we talk about loving ourselves and putting ourselves first, well, before we can do that, we have to heal.
You gotta
So
heal.
I understand what you mean. Like it brought you to tears, right? And that's good. Those are good tears. Those are that's that negativity that's leaving your
Coming
body
out.
and it's
Yeah, exactly.
getting replenished by positivity. And that's what I was saying
Mhm.
earlier. Like that's who I am, and that's the people I want around me. People that exudes positivity.
Mhm.
So I understand that, and that's powerful, right? And I'm glad you was able to find an outlet to do that, because there's a lot of people that suffers or they struggle to find that outlet, right?
Yeah.
To the point
No,
where they're
absolutely.
just sabotaging themselves, right? That's
Yeah.
why it's important to understand who you are, right? And that's why decompression time and self-reflection is very important, because we need to understand who we are so we can correct situations. And that's one of the reasons at a young age, like I said, I dealt with a lot of trauma. That's one of the reasons why I said I always wanted to give back. I always wanted to help the unfortunate, or like I never liked bullies, nothing like that, right? Like I always, so growing up, like, I had a lot of anger growing up, but the only people I wanted to fight was the bullies, right?
Mm. Mm.
And so, and as I got older, that don't lead you nowhere, having that thought
Mhm.
process. So as I was getting older, I said, you know what? I had to change that mindset. I got to get in tune or in touch with my inner self and learn from those mistakes. And if I want to be positive, I can't take that approach anymore. I
Yeah.
got to find something. I got to find something else that's going to work in a positive manner. So I bust my ass trying to uphold a certain image, right? The people that know me know I'm a family man. I'm a hard worker, and I do necessary things. And some people call me a preacher. I'm not a preacher, but like I can see where they can get that from, because I always
Mhm.
like to impact people mentally, right? I try to give
Mm.
them messages or encourage them or uplift them, or whatever. Like I might shoot you a quote that I just thought of on the fly, or
Yeah.
something that I heard that I liked, and I like to help people grow, right?
Yeah. That's
I guess that's
amazing.
what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what, and that's what your book did for me. It allowed me to grow, because, like when I was saying earlier about the muscle, the biggest muscle in your body is your mind, and you have to exercise that too. So reading your book definitely made me grow, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes me think. Like, so you know what I mean, right? Like you read certain things, and if you had to sit there and think and ponder on it, and go, huh? Like I said, I had to reread a couple of passages, couple of paragraphs, couple of sentences. You had my mind working, right? And that's good.
Yeah.
The more your mind works, the smarter you are, right?
Exactly.
And the more healthy you are, because when your mind's stagnant, when your mind's dormant, right, your thoughts are just laying there. That's not beneficial. It's unhealthy. If you look at it like this, like somebody that is in a coma or something like that, or in a vegetative state, right? Well, that's because everything stops, right? So you can't allow your mind to be that way. You got to keep moving. You got to keep exercising. You got to keep growing it, and that's how we prosper in life, man. So
Yeah, for sure, for
I
sure.
I definitely appreciate you. Like I said, the book is powerful. Let's see, I read like 120 ish. Because I remember it was like 100 and something 20, but then I was like, let me finish this letter. So whatever that fell on, and so still had to read the next, what's it, 50, 40 pages, 60, yeah, like
You
40
remember
pages.
what letter you
Eh,
were on when you're done?
Say it again.
Do you remember what which letter you were on or you finished when you were done?
Uh, I can check. So no, it's over here because I had it open because that's so I read last night. Then I was like, I'm tired. Then I was woke up like 5 in the morning. And I was reading a little bit, and I was nodding out. So I was like, let me put it down because I want to absorb everything that's in it. So before we was live, that's actually what I was doing. I was reading. I was like, I got to read as much as possible. So all right. So the letter that I finished was 16. So I was
16.
wrong. I said 120 something. Yeah. So that started not because 17 started on 119 because I have a piece of paper in between to separate
Oh,
it.
you're
Oh,
at the practice. The letter number 16 is the practice.
right. I don't
Learning how
remember
to
that when I
practice.
was looking. You got the chapters in front of you. Like that's like the third time like I mentioned something. You said, "Oh, that was in this chapter," and I told you what page. You said, "Oh yeah, this." Like how do you know that? You just remember?
I'm cheating. I'm cheating.
Oh,
I got it right next to me.
I got you. And there's so many quotes that I wrote from the book that I wanted to talk about, but I can't even read my chicken scratch. So I don't know if you see me looking down, but I was trying to read it because it's a lot of things that was meaningful and I wanted to talk about. But it's like I can't even read my own handwriting. Like I know the one was about how you broke down dis-ease and disease. That's one thing I wrote down here, but I can't read what I was writing here. Um, it's something you mentioned earlier that like I'm like, oh, I wrote notes on that, but again, it's hard to read it because like I said, I was doing this last night. I was doing it this morning. I was before we went live, and I was just like, usually what I would do is I would type it up, but I was like, well, it's not going to be like a format. It's not an outline. It's just certain things that I like that I wanted to bring up. So
Mhm.
that's why normally I would type it up because then I ain't got to worry about this.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
But
a lot of it
that's
was
really
about
cool.
love, huh?
I feel that's really cool that you like I recommend people when they're reading the book that they do that work. If there's something inside of that book, like if there's a passage or whatever that stick out to them, they can actually ponder and write about that in their own lives, right? That's
Right.
a really good
Hmm.
exercise to do with the book is you can write like yourself, like and self-reflect like in that moment with whatever you're that's coming to you. It's like, okay, I want to go deeper inside of this. So writing is a therapy, and it's a
Right.
really, really great therapy and it's a free therapy as well. So I would really recommend people to go through the writing while they're reading that book and just as soon as they're kind of like inspired about something and it
Write
reminds
it
them of
down.
something, write it down and contemplate on that before you
Right.
get into the next letter.
Now that's one of the problems I ran into because from letter one, I was like going into it. I was like anything that I like, I'm gonna write it down. Well, once I got to like 7 pages and I was only on letter three, I'm like, okay, no, I can't do this because it's like I'm writing a book myself. Because I was like, now I got to shorten it. So I was like, I can't write no more than a sentence or something, and then I
Yeah,
can build from that. Because
yeah.
I was like, as I speak about it, you know what you wrote, so we can dive into it like that. Because I was like 7 pages deep, and I was like, this is crazy. But taking notes because that's what I mean about your story, right? It's thought provoking. Like you write it.
Mhm.
Oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. And then you be like, well, I'm just gonna write this, and then 3 sentences down, it wouldn't make sense without adding what comes in between.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
why I got to so many pages. I'm like, you know what? We just gonna get on here. We're gonna talk about the book. I'm gonna encourage other people to read the book because they'll see what I see, right? They'll
yeah,
start reading it, and I'm like,
absolutely.
wow, this is very powerful.
Mhm.
Um, so anything else you want to add before we conclude?
Well, I just want to say thank you and thank you for your passion as well. And doing that work and that inner work, that's so beautiful to see. And having these conversations are so important right now in the world. And I think I really appreciate hosts like you that are wanting to get into deeper conversations like this, because it's not everybody that, that is attracted to that kind of like conversation. And so thank you for that. And yeah, if anybody wants to kind of just follow my stuff, you can follow me at lettersbyellie.com, or my social, Ellie Laliberte, on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm also sharing a little bit about the sequel to this book in some places in my social media, so you'll have kind of like a sneak peek of what is coming, so that's cool. And I do have an audiobook as well, for those who are not super keen at reading and they're more audio style. It is a completely different experience too. The audiobook is so cool. I mean, it's not me, but the person that narrates it, she has a similar voice to me, and she did a really, really good job at bringing the reader to be captivated in the book. And so you can find that on Audible if you're interested in the audiobook.
Okay. Now, one thing I want to add before we get closed out. So I'm gonna tell you how much of an inspiration you were, right? Because this is the thing: people that actually read and that enjoy reading, right? I know for a fact they would love this book, right? And to add to what I was saying about the inspiration, so when I said I was at Barnes and Noble the other day, I was reading the book. I was like 50, 60 pages in, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go to Barnes and Noble. I went there, and it's like a candy store for me. I'm like, so many books, but I wound up just buying two.
No.
And so I bought two because, like I said, it's all about exercising your mind, right? And
Mhm.
reading your book, and the fact that it had me thinking so much, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna challenge my mind a little bit more. I'm just go
Mhm.
to the library.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go pick out me a couple books, and I'm just going to dive in. And I'm just going to read. And it's like, it's good. Information is everything, man. It's like
Yeah.
knowledge is power, and people just need to accept that. And a lot of, like I said, a lot of people afraid of reading, or they act like they're afraid of reading. They shy away from it, and I don't understand why. Because
Mhm.
when you read something, it's so. I often tell people, what's the difference between listening to like a motivational speaker versus reading? It's the same thing,
Yeah.
right? You listen to them to be informed. You read books to be informed. You read a book or listen to a motivational speaker to be enlightened, to feel
Yeah.
empowered, to feel encouraged,
Absolutely.
motivated, things of that nature. So why not pick up a book and read it, right? Because now, this is the thing: when you're reading, you don't have the burden of having all these distractions around you, right? Now, if you go out to like an engagement speaking event, then now it's multiple people. People might want to talk to you while you're trying to process. So now
Yeah.
you got the distractions. So it's a lot easier for me to just sit there to myself, self-reflect,
Absolutely.
decompress, dive in and get some good literature in. You know what I'm saying? But
Mhm.
I appreciate you, and continue to do the great work that you're doing. And I definitely look forward to having you on as a guest, more frequently, time permitted, of course. Definitely stay in touch. To all the viewers that's watching live or that's going to watch the replay, continue to support, continue to like, share, comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe. All the love is greatly appreciated. And yeah, make sure you pick up a copy of Letters from You to You. It's really good, I promise you. And you can thank me later. And until the next time, Ellie,
Thank
be
you.
blessed.
Thank you so
No
much.
problem. You're welcome.